But I was just saying, it's amazing how, like, in life, somebody could be married, and then in the movie world, they die, then they get back to life again, then they fall in love with someone else, then they are hugging and kissing someone else, then in the next movie, they're doing something else, then the next movie, they're with someone else, then they died, then they woke up, and then they Beauty the Beast kissed them and made them back into life again. So it's like, it's fascinating how it's such a fake world in that world. So in the real world, it's very different. And I want to take you through the Sefirot. I'm going to share with you the screen and take you with a little path on the Sefirot, because that's the time that we're in. This is the time of the year. And we're going to try and transform ourselves using the 10 ways of transformation of the Sefirot. And I'm going to be using examples with dating, because that's the topic that it applies to most people today. Okay? Makes sense? Sounds good? People are excited or not so?
Very excited.
Okay. I love you, Ben. I appreciate it. So, okay, I just muted everyone just for now, so that way it's clearer. And now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen, and I'm going to go to the Sefirot. I've done this in the past with some of you guys, but I've never given, one class doesn't do its justice. I've done one class with everybody on this. I've done the colors in the past, but this is very, very basic, very simple, and should really give you some life tips in general, but especially in the area of dating. So here is I'm going to share with you my, how do I share my, annotate. Here you go. I'll share with you my mouse and then give it a nice color. Oh, wait a second. No, 1 second. Should has spotlight maybe. Is that the guy? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so can you see the screen? Can you see what I've written here? What's here? Or not so well? I take that as a yes. Okay, so in Jewish teaching, we have 49 days from Passover until Shavuot. Passover is when we left Egypt. Shavuot is, anyone?
You can unmute yourself, by the way. Anyone who wants.
When we got the Torah.
Right, so Shavuot is when we got the Torah. Note that we did not get the Torah immediately the day after we left Egypt. We could have. We didn't do that because we needed to go through what we call a specific transformation. And that's the transformation of leaving slavery, leaving the Egypt mentality, leaving the 49 levels of impurity that there are in this world, according to Jewish mystical teaching. And we slowly take ourselves out from there and add on ourselves 49 layers of purity until we reach the highest level of spirituality, which is when we can now see God. And that was when we received the Torah, okay? So what's very interesting is that the way that the Omer works is on the very first day of the Omer, they would bring a offering, and it was called a harvest offering. It was called the Omer, which means to harvest. This was the day after Passover. So on the second day of Passover, they would bring this offering. And they would bring barley. Barley is an animal food. It's brought down in Perek Shirah, in the book of songs, which is basically a song that each food, that each animal has to the world. Every single thing that exists has a specific lesson to us in this world. Every animal has a lesson to us. The dog teaches us to be loyal, right? The cat teaches us to be modest. Naturally, it doesn't need to be trained, right? That's the beauty of a cat. So every animal has something powerful to teach us. And in Perek Shirah, every food has something to teach us. So the barley is an animal food, okay? It's an animal food. It's the first food to sprout during the spring. Passover happened in the spring, and basically one of the first grains to sprout or to grow and to be ready for us is barley. It grows quickly and easily during the spring, and it's the first grain to grow. Wheat, however, takes more time, and it's ready by Shavuot. That's when it's normally able to harvest, and that's why they would bring the wheat offering, because now they have wheat, and they would be happy that we have wheat, and they would bring a wheat offering. So there was these barley offering and wheat offering. Barley was given during the time of leaving Egypt, and wheat offering was given when we received the Torah. Why? What is this to do with the 49 levels of transformation? Because the animal, which is the barley food, the animal food, was what we were when we were in Egypt. We were like animals, okay? We didn't have any special personality to us. We just went with the flow, okay? So when you see somebody who's a nice guy or a nice girl today, you have to also question, are those nice attributes natural, or are they something that person worked on? You know, there's two ways that you can acquire something. If they are natural, then it doesn't necessarily prove that they can overcome certain challenges. But if it's something that they worked on, meaning when we remember that person as a kid, or when I heard about that person as a kid and they were terrible, right? And now they've worked on it. So now they've left that animal state and they've become a human because they've overcome their desires in certain areas. So that's exactly what happened from Passover to Shavuot. Passover, we gave the animal offering because that's when it happens to be that's when the first grain grows, is barley. And what happens is it all works out, right? So Passover works out in the exact time of the year that it's spring, and the first grain that happens to grow first in the fields is barley. You have to stay with me on this because it's amazing. It's an amazing concept. The first grain that grows in the fields is barley, and that's an animal food. It's true that we can eat it too, but it's a cheap and easy food for animals. So it's an animal food. It's considered an animal food, and it's the first grain to grow after Passover. Why? Because we were like animals in Egypt, and what we came were humans. Okay? So I have here a little demonstration of this. It's a fascinating concept here. Let's see if I can zoom in on the screen. So you can see with me, if you bear with me here where my pointer is, an animal is behemah, and the numerical value of an animal is 52. Okay, can you guys all see the screen? You can nod your head if you can. Yeah, you can see the screen. So an animal is 52, behemah, and in Hebrew, the word behemah comes from the word ba-ma. In it is what? There is no soul in an animal. It just eats and it sleeps. It wakes up, it eats, it sleeps, right? So ba-ma is the word for behemah, which means in it is what? Then you have Adam, which is 45, and that adds up altogether to 97. Why? Because the ability to transform from an animal to a human is through time, is through the regard of time. An animal has no regard to time at all. Time is not, I've never seen an animal looking at the clock, as wise as they are. They're never looking at the clock saying, what's the time right now? You know, they work by certain times, but they're not bound to time mentally. They are bound physically to time. We all are, but not mentally. I don't have the time right now. It's naturally they work in certain ways which are time bound, but we are what we call human, and what we need to be is beyond time, like that we control our time, not that time controls us. So that's really the essence of this period of time that we're in right now, according to Jewish teaching. We are in the counting period of growth between becoming an animal to becoming a human. And that's something which takes, obviously, an effort of time. Zaman in Hebrew is 97, and it's equal to the numerical value of Behemah and Adam put together. So I wrote down here, Behemah is 52, Adam is 45. 52 and 45 adds up to 97, which is the same numerical value as time. So what we want to do is, and this is very important, let's say in dating as well, one of the great distinctions between a person that's worked on themselves and a person that's not worked on themselves is how they value time. Everyone values time, but what for? Some people say time is money. Some people say money is time, money is time because, like the Chafetz Chaim used to say, it's true time is money, but money is also time. I don't want to waste my time. I can live with a minimal amount. I don't need to waste my time on that. I could do something greater than just making money. So what is my time being spent for? Is it being spent for me looking after my physical self more, or is it being spent for learning more, for growing more, right? These are the questions, and these are the thoughts I need to think about in myself as well. How do I regard to myself as time? Do I regard it as an animal or as a human? An animal regards time as a reality that there is, and I have to do things in my time that I have. A human says, I am beyond time. I dictate my time, right? That's the concept here that we need to work on. So that's the idea of leaving Passover, coming into getting the Torah. We need the time to grow and elevate ourselves from being animals, so to speak, into humans. Okay, so now I want to take you to the Sefirot and talk about them. And then after each one, I have a whole thing that goes on here. After each one, then we can talk about the transformation and the impact that they have on us. Okay, so the Sefirot work like this, and as you can see, one second, as you can see on this human here, right? So there's the Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, which are the three Sefirot that are intellectual, that are connected to your brain. Okay? So you have Chokhmah, which means wisdom. Bina is understanding, and Da'at is knowledge. So what that really means is like this. Wisdom is actually the male energy, which is ideas that are constantly being thrown in the air. This is the initial spark of the brain. So the idea that one morning I wake up and I say, I'm hungry and I need to eat something right now, that's the idea in your brain that triggered. So it's based off your stomach. But at the end of the day, your brain is talking. If your brain wasn't working, you'll need someone else to remind you that you need to eat. So your brain is telling you, which is the idea, okay, or an idea. I want something sweet to taste, right? That's called an idea that comes into my mind. Bina is the analytical part of my brain. That's the left side of my brain. And that's the female energy of my brain. And that's called the understanding. So guys are great at giving great ideas and like, yeah, let's go here, let's go there. And the woman's energy is great at understanding and analyzing those ideas. Okay, fine, you want to go for dessert, but that's not right. Let's talk about that for a second. Right? Let's not just throw ideas in the air, but let's analyze the idea. Okay? So that's what Bina is. That's the left side of the brain. The first is the idea. So let's say if it's about ice cream, let's say if it's about dessert. So Chokhmah, the very first concept will be, hey, I want something sweet. Okay, so that's the idea that comes into your head. Then the left side of your head would say, wait a second, what type of sweet do I want? Do I want dates? Do I want natural sugar? Do I want grapes? Do I want fruit? Or do I want ice cream? And then finally I say to myself, you know what? Life has been very hard recently. I should have some ice cream, right? So when I actually analyze what I want and I come to a conclusion that I want ice cream, that's already that. That's when it finalizes in my knowledge and I start feeling like I really need to get ice cream now, right? And the more I look at it, the more I do research about it, the more I invest into the idea that's in my mind, the more I'm going to chase after it. That's something which happens to us a lot. We think of a certain idea, then we sit on it, and we sit on it, and we sit on it. We research it, and we research it more until eventually it becomes part of me, and I this is what I need to do, right? So that's something that happens to us all. So those are the three stages or the three parts of the brain: Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at. Okay, there's the right side of your brain, the left side of the brain, and what we call the back of the brain, which connects to the rest of your body, which is the knowledge. The first part is the idea that comes into your mind. The second is to analyze which one, and the third is to actually bring it out into reality. Okay, so everyone could say that with me: Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at. Okay, so Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at. Okay, Chokhmah is a male energy. Bina, the analytical part, is the female energy, and Da'at is in between. It's called knowledge. That's the final situation where I actually make the move. Okay, so let's say somebody says, oh, I want to buy a house. Okay, I need to move to another house. So that's the idea. Then the next part is, okay, where should I live? Where should I buy my house? What kind of area do I want? Do I want to live further out of the Jewish community with a nicer house? Or do I want to live closer to the Jewish community, but with a not such a nice house because it's a more expensive area? That's just an example, right? So that's called the analyzing part of your brain. And then once you've concluded what you want, then comes that, and like your emotions kick in. You're like, I really want this. I really want this. Okay. So when it comes to dating, we have to understand that there's a number of stages here when it comes to dating. You know, there's the first part of dating is the idea, like I really want to date. Okay, great. Now is the Bina, is the analyzing part. You know, what type of girl do I want? What kind of relationship do I want? What kind of lifestyle do I want to live? What kind of children will I want to have? That's the Bina. You see, Chokhmah's very good at the beginning, and it's like, whoa, this is amazing. But then when you start analyzing things, you're like, okay, I should have really thought about this twice. You know, it's not just an initial idea and like, that sounds cool, but now I need to analyze, how am I going to actually implement this? Once I recognize I could implement the idea, then I have that, and I actually take it to reality, and I feel emotions saying in me, wow, you need this, you need this. The first two parts are not connected as much to your physical body, to your emotions. The third part starts connecting to the rest of your body. Does this make sense to everybody? Is everybody following with me, or this is just random information?
I'm following with you, Rabbi.
Okay, so that's the three aspects of the brain. Yes.
I might have got distracted by this tequila, but
you mean I got distracted by the tequila?
Me too.
gotta keep the brand strong. So I don't understand what it has to do with the body.
Well, your brain has a lot to do with your body.
No, I know, but when you're saying
Yeah.
saying it's like the body one, right? Or did I hear you wrong?
So yeah, you're right. This is right now we're going through the intellectual aspects of God's energies in the world. Okay, and these are part of the 10 Sefirot. Okay? These are not the 7 Sefirot, but these are part of the 10. Okay, so they are the first 3, and they are not manifested in our bodies. They are shown in our brain or in the way we think. So we don't really see as much the concept of Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat. We just know about it. And we don't see it in the world as much. So these 10 energies, which are called the 10 Sefirot, right, are the 10 ways of God being manifested in this world. Okay, so these are the 10 ways that we see Hashem in this world. Okay, the very first 3 are more hidden, but the last 7, which are the ones that we actually use for the counting of the Omer, these 7 are actually shown in the world. They are connected to the rest of the body, and we'll talk about them in a minute. This is connected to the Sfirat HaOmer, okay? So I have a little tab over here. There's 49 numbers here, okay? There's 7 days in the week. Each one of those days of the week are connected to the 7 Sfirot after the first 3. So you have the first 3, which are to do with your brain, and then the next 7, which are to do with the body. Okay? So Chesed is actually the first day of creation. Gevura was the second day of creation. Tiferet was the third day of creation. Netzach was the 4th. Hod was the 5th. 6th was Yesod, and 7th was Shabbat. That's Malchut. Okay, so you have, these are the 7 days of creation as well, hidden into, for instance, just for you to understand, it says, Olam Chesed Yibaneh. The world was created with kindness. Why? Because, first of all, Chesed doesn't just mean kindness. I wrote here, flow. Okay, so in order for the world to be, for it to exist, God doesn't need us. He doesn't need this world. He is all powerful, all knowing, and all existing. So, all loving. He doesn't need this world in any way. So why did he create it? The answer is simply out of chesed, out of his unconditional, unlimited flow of kindness. Okay, so that's why day 1, which is the creation, is connected to chesed. Day 2 is connected to gevura. Day 3, tiferet, and so on. So when it comes to counting the Omer, it's 7 weeks till Shavuot. 49 days is exactly 7 weeks. Day 1 is the second day of Passover. And you get to 49, at the end of 49, day 50 would be entering a new zone, and it's the zone of Shavuot when we enter the receiving of the Torah. Okay, that's the highest level of purity out once you've reached 49. So this is the second day of the Omer. This is the first day of the Omer. And this week here is the first week. Today we just entered, yesterday was the 12th. Today is the 13th, right? So we are now in the second week of the Omer. And each day has one of these 7 Sefirot that we need to work on. So there's one of these 7. Each week is, so week 1 is Chesed, week 2 is Gevura, week 3 is Tiferet, week 4 is Netzach, and day 1 would be Chesed. So day 1 will be Chesed of Chesed. Day 2 will be Chesed of Gevura. Day 3, it's kind of complicated, but what we're doing is, if you multiply all of these by all these 7, by 7, you get 49. And each day we work on 2 of these combined in a different way. Each day we work on one of these combined with another one, and we enter a different type of work that we need to work on ourselves. So I'm just going to take you through, it's very short, but just take you through some of these energies that God manifests himself into this world. And these are the attributes that you should be looking at when dating, as opposed to just the physical attributes. Okay, a spiritual person does not look at things that are fleeting. You're going out with somebody and she says, or you say to her, "You are beautiful today." And she says to you, "Oh, really? Thank you. Why do you think I'm beautiful?" So you say, "Well, look at your dress." She could tell you, "Well, you know, I could just buy it. A dress is just the clothing. I mean, I could always buy another one. It's not. It gets dirty." So if that's what a man is telling a girl, then she knows that anybody could be telling her that. What makes you special for marriage if that's what you're telling a girl? It's not like you can't compliment somebody. But at the end of the day, if that's what you value, if I ask you, why do you love her? And you say it's because, or what do you love about her? And you say, I love about her that she wears this and this dress. I love that dress that she's wearing. Or I love the way that she makes me feel when I'm around her. These are all things that are not really to do with her. These are not necessarily to do with her energy per se. These are important. You need to be attracted to the person you date. You need to be attracted, but that shouldn't be the underlying principle of why you feel the connection or the chemistry to that person. Because it says in the Talmud, love that's dependent on something, if you take away that something, then you don't have the love anymore. So if you love somebody because of her dress, well, if she takes away the dress and puts on a different type of dress and it's not so attractive to you, so then maybe, the love falls apart. I mean, it's just a physical thing, right? That's not a reason to have a relationship. That's not the only reason. You need to look at these 7 attributes. Granted, by the way, if somebody doesn't look nice and doesn't look respectable, then it shows a flaw in one of these 7 Sefirot, right? It shows a flaw in one of these 7 energies, internal spiritual energies that that person might have. I hope you understand what I'm saying. But if let's say you see a man walking in the street and his shirt is very dirty, okay? That's actually a reflection. It could be a reflection. We shouldn't judge them, but it could very well be a reflection of something one of the internal energies or the spiritual energies that we should be looking at when we're dating. It could be that something inside that person is flawed, right? Because maybe he's not internally happy with himself, and that's why he's not looking after himself externally. Maybe he doesn't have the right limitations on things. He doesn't know how to look after, make boundaries when he eats, right? So the externality can show sometimes how the person acts internally, but that shouldn't be the underlying attractive factor to that person. If I'm attracted to a person just because of the external things, then if those external things disappear, and they will, then I have nobody. I don't have, right? So this could happen if, let's say, somebody dates. Let's give a very simple, serious example. Dave dates with Sarah, right? So David and Sarah are going out, and David really likes Sarah. He likes the way that she runs her business, and he likes the way she dresses and how she makes him feel in public, right? These are all fleeting concepts, nothing to do with anything deep within that person. He likes all the externalities of the person, and that's what's really the underlying factor of his relationship. And if people would ask him, why are you so in love with this person? He would say all these fleeting concepts, right? All the externalities. So let's say they get married and they're in love and it's amazing for the first few years. Then suddenly her business falls apart. So you have a small business, but her business was a huge aspect of your pride, or maybe it can go more the other way when his business falls apart. But let's say that was the underlying reason for your attraction. So if that was your underlying reason that you were dating in the first place, and now you find out, and this can happen. I remember a student telling me that my parents got divorced, and I said, I'm so sorry. I said, what happened? So he said, yeah, it was during the last crash of the economy, the last recession. My father lost his business, and it was a terrible time for us. And the business fell apart, and everything fell apart. Like the marriage couldn't continue. So obviously not judging, and I don't know exactly the story, and it doesn't matter. But if a relationship is not dependent on how a business goes or how much money the other side makes, right? So then I know that I'm going to be in for a long-term relationship. I know that I'm going to be in the relationship for the right reason. It's true, those beneficial things are an extra reason to be attracted, but they can't be my underlying principle of why I like this person. I must be aware of this concept. It seems so obvious to most people that are listening here. Most people would say, this is so obvious. Of course, I don't look at somebody just for their money. I don't look at them just for their looks. It's true, but if I live in those, if I'm a very materialistic person, I wouldn't be able to help it. Those are the things I'm going to be looking at in the other person. If I'm very materialistic, that's what I'm going to be looking at. There's no way of getting out of it. And it's important to work on these 7 Sefirot, which I've not even started yet. But it's important to work on these 7 Sefirot to, it doesn't matter though. I'm not about covering ground. I'm more about covering in depth and understanding. So it's more important that these concepts are known to you. So that way when you date, and if you date with the right intentions, so that you don't just date for a short-term relationship where initially you thought, okay, I'm only doing this because there's an amazing business and look how much success there is in this relationship. And then what happens if that falls apart? If the love that I've got for this person is dependent on something, then I have to know that love can disappear. Then I don't have that person anymore. I need to love the person because of them, not just because of the things that they have, because those things can go. That's what it says in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Kol ahava tluya bedavar batel hadavar batel ahava. Any love that's dependent on something, if you take away that something, you don't have the love. So the way you have the real love is if you do it for nothing. I'm in this because I really want to share with you and I want to care for you. And I really see real things within you that are nothing to do with external factors. Those are the things that we should be looking at. Okay, so let me give you some examples of the midot, of the characters, of the 7 characters that we work on during this time of the Sfirat HaOmer, of transformation between Passover, becoming an animal to becoming a spiritual person. Now, before I even get into this again, I want to make one more point, which is really, really important as well. And that is that, in a non-spiritual world, in a world that doesn't have any spirituality at all, you can have people with lots of chesed. You can have people with lots of gevura. You can have lots of people with lots of tiferet. You can have people with lots of kindness and flow and all these good energies that we're going to be speaking about, right? But not always, right? They are put in the right balance. And that's when it's good. Any of these that are taken to extreme are evil. If I have too much chesed, it's evil. Too much kindness is evil. Too much limitations are evil. Too much harmony or beauty, which is what it is too much harmony and relaxation, right, is evil. It's bad for you. Too much perseverance, endurance can be very dangerous and can be evil if you put it in the wrong areas to take control and so on. Too much focusing on one thing is not good because, right? So that's basically the concept here, that you need to know that any of these 7 Sefirot, the world can have them. You see them in people, but the question is, are they able to balance them in the right way? And that's where Judaism comes in, to teach me how to balance these energies in the right way. And there's many people that have chesed, but that's a natural character of theirs. I don't only need to look for natural characters, I also want to see what I can work on as a person. Some people are born with an attribute of kindness, right? But that's something you're born with, so you naturally have that. What am I able to work on outside of that? You also have to work on the things that you're already good at, naturally, because you need to put them in the right balance. But this is the concept. So I want to take you through the ideas and tell me what you think. Okay. So chesed is the first concept, and that means kindness or flow. Okay. So let's say water, for instance, water in the ocean moving around all the time is a great chesed. It allows me to move. Movement is through the ocean. Energy is given through the movement of the ocean, of the water. Water represents chesed, but water knows no boundaries. It knows no boundaries. It just goes everywhere. So if I throw some water in the air, it wouldn't just naturally land in a cup. It will just flow everywhere. That's why you need a cup to restrain it. The cup would be the next stage, which is Gevura. Okay, so the second of the 7. I'm sorry that I wrote here 4 to 10. It should be 1 to 7, but it should be actually, I don't know. Okay, so it should be 1 to 7, but it's irrelevant right now. Chesed is the initial energy that we see in the world, and that's actually represented on my right arm, the right side of me, on my arm. And that's the energy of chesed. So everyone has in them a certain sense of compassion, a certain sense of giving, a certain sense of kindness. Everyone has that in them. The question is, do you have too much chesed in the wrong place? For instance, somebody who can't say no to other people. Somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, would you like to hang out? You know, I know it's COVID-19, but who cares? Let's go and hang out in the park or something," right? So somebody who doesn't know how to say no, who doesn't know how to, which is a big problem of today's generation, which is they don't like to have conflictions, or there's a better word for that. They don't like to have not confliction, but there's another word for when you don't, a challenge of not getting along with someone. There's a word for that. So some people just don't want that. Yes, confrontation. So some people just don't want confrontation. So their friend will call them up and say, "Hey, let's go out for a jog in the park," and you don't want confrontation, so you find it very difficult to say, "No, I'm really sorry. I'm staying home right now. I'm listening to protocol, and I prefer to stay at home." And you don't want the confrontation of, "Come on, dude, that's ridiculous." You don't want somebody to, this whole thing is ridiculous anyway. What are the odds? Come on. So that's the confrontation that you may face. A very chesed personality doesn't know how to stand up for himself, doesn't know how to set boundaries to the people that he needs to set boundaries with. That's bad chesed. It's evil chesed, right? Kindness, which is like Robin Hood, is evil kindness, right? Which is steal from the poor for the rich. That is the only time you can steal is to save a life. We had a whole class on that. You could steal to save somebody's life as long as you commit to paying them back after you've saved that person's life. The big question is, what happens if you spent $100,000 of your own money to save someone's life or somebody else's? How would you pay back now? But anyway, that's another discussion. But chesed means that I have unlimited kindness. But the problem with that is, what happens if I'm dating someone and I see chesed in them? I see this tremendous ability to have compassion, and it's really attractive to me. That's a very important aspect, and that's something that you should be attracted to, right? It's not a fleeting concept. That's actually a personality of that person, as opposed to other things which are dependent, like their money or their car or their looks, which is obviously a factor. You have to be attracted to the person. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be the underlying key of why you're attracted to them. So the very first thing is look for chesed in your relationship. However, know that a chesed personality has a difficulty with saying no. Okay, you get in the taxi, and this has happened to me before, and the guy in the taxi wants to charge a ridiculous amount of money for a very short journey. So the person that I was in the taxi with, this was quite a few years ago, but the person that I was in the taxi was like, whatever, I'll just pay. And I was like, no, I'm buying a taxi ride and he is buying my money. So I'm normally very difficult. I hate confrontation, very bad at confrontation. I try and avoid it. I'm a people pleaser. That's my job. That's what I try and do. So I'm much more of a flowy kindness type person, but I know in myself that there is a lot of danger. In that specific case, I found that guy's chesed was way too strong. And he said, come on, whatever, just let it go. And it was literally like a few $100s. In New York, it was one of our first trips that we did to New York. And that happened. So we had to take a taxi. There wasn't enough room in the bus. So we took a taxi, and the taxi driver was charging a ridiculous amount of money. So I tried to haggle with him. I did it in a nice way. But anyway, that's another discussion. But that's the point, right? Are you able to say to somebody that's really harming you, are you able to have limitation? Now, if let's say I'm in that taxi and I fight and I get into this crazy argument with the guy, and I start, I watch the guy and he's getting really heated and I'm getting heated. And right, then it means that I'm having too much gevura. That means I have too much limitations, too much strength. And at some point I need to just give in and say, okay, fine, this guy really needs the money, obviously, and whatever, right? So the chesed versus gevura is a concept that needs to be worked on. It needs to be thought about all the time. Every time you're in the street, every time you're having a conversation, in your work, in your dating, right? David and Sarah goes out and you don't know how to say, this really isn't for me. Or like, how do you tell somebody that you're dating that you're not interested? Don't let that other person think that you're interested in them for months on end because you can't bear confrontation. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Anyone know what I'm talking about? You let the other person date with you, or you date somebody else because you can't deal with confrontation. That's insane. That means your whole life is put on hold, right? Because if somebody's 29 now or 30 today, and he's now dating and doesn't know how to say no in a relationship, and it's going on for too long, then that's a problem. Because if you cut it short early, number one, you save yourself from many problems, and number two is you can get on with your dating. Life is too short, and you want to, at some point, people want to get into a serious relationship and get married. We can't spend all our time just dating. Don't wait till the moment that you're desperate to be married, and then be pushing. You want to be ahead of the game. So the concept here is knowing how to say no with chesed. God has gevura. This is an attribute of God. How is restriction or strength good? How is that a good thing? And the answer is when it's embodied with chesed. Chesed was first, so once you've had the chesed, now you have gevura. A parent that tells his child off in a way that's too strict is cruel. But he needs to tell his child off. So a parent needs to tell his child off, that's true, but with chesed. So you need gevura, but with chesed. The kid runs on the street, you need to tell him to get off the street. You need that limitation, but done with chesed. Sometimes it can be done with crazy amount of shouting, causing the kid to be in absolute fear. That's not healthy for the child. That's not love. So you need gevura, but you need it with chesed. We need to know how to have confrontation in the form of chesed. Not in a rude way, not in a way that's offensive to the other person. And that's what people are struggling with. Why do we not like confrontation and we rather avoid it? I'd rather date someone that I don't even want to date for months on end, even though I know this is not for me, just because I don't want to have confrontation. Why would I do that? And the answer is because I don't have enough chesed in my gevura. Or maybe I have too much chesed, but I don't know how to balance these two. I don't know how to say no in a nice way. I don't believe in myself that I could say no in a friendly and kind manner. And that's something that we need to work on. So that's the idea, and it needs to be worked on. How do you work on it? You train yourself. Always have these two words in your mind. Gevura, chesed, chesed, gevura. Right? You train yourself. The next time somebody says something that you don't want them to do, someone calls you up and says, would you want to come out for a jog right now, or and it's not the time because of COVID-19 or whatever, or maybe you do want to go. You have to know how to respond with gevura, with chesed. So that's the very first two concepts. Once you have the chesed and gevura put in the right way, and remember, we understand God has all of these attributes. He has the attribute of strength and limitations, meaning not that he is limited. He brings into the world limitations, right? So he puts that energy into this world, not that God is limited. He puts the energy of limitations. He doesn't let chesed flow too much. He puts that limitations on the chesed. That is a very important thing, and it needs to be done. Once you have these two, you have harmony. A parent that's able to tell off his child in the right way, never just lets his child do whatever he wants all the time, but is able to discipline in the perfect way, will have a beautiful relationship, a beautiful, loving relationship. You'll see the parent and the child, and you'll say, wow, the child respects his parent. The child listens to his parent. The child is really well behaved. And the reason for that is because that parent is educating the child in the right way. What's he doing? He's not just letting this child do whatever he wants all the time. He's not just letting him order whatever he wants on Amazon and be whoever he wants, whenever he wants, dress the way he wants, look the way he wants, and speak the way he wants all the time. That's not a caring parent. He gives him limitation, but with a smile. He gives him the limitation, but with kindness. He gives him that limitation with the flow. Oh, I'm sorry. I really don't think this is the time to be I don't think this is the time to be online, but I'll give you something else to compensate for that. That's something that I've noticed that my wife does with the kids. She would say sometimes no and immediately compensate it with something else. I have a better idea though. I love that one. I have a better idea though. And she'll take out some paint and they'll all go painting, So that's called gevura with chesed. And that's when once you have limitation with the right kindness, you have beauty, you have harmony. And harmony is what you want to see. It makes you happy. The word tiferet, beauty, is the color yellow, and that's what you want to see in your in a relationship. Smiling, happiness. A child's happy when he feels that he gets limited, when he feels that he has boundaries. He doesn't just earn whatever he wants all the time. You'll see a smiling child. He listens to his parent. That is because there's chesed and gevurah. Then you have tiferet. And you have this in all areas of life. If you see somebody who's unhappy, then you know he's not balancing his flow with his limitations. Maybe he's too kind to the whole world and he's not looking after himself. Maybe he's too kind to everybody else and he's not able to overcome his own limitations of saying no. Maybe he's too strict. Maybe that person is too strict all the time, is too much always discipline, and eventually he doesn't look happy. Right? So there's got to be that easy, chill flow, but there's also got to be that limitation to cause that beautiful harmony of happiness. Does anyone have any questions from what I've been speaking about till now in general? Or some examples that you would like to throw in about dating in regards to that, these three ideas that we spoke about? I love examples, by the way. Any thoughts, ideas? You can unmute yourself. And if you don't really have a thought, then you don't need to say it just to make me happy. It's not.
I'm thinking if I can think of something.
Okay, but you understand what's going on in the conversation? You understand this talk?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of an example, but I can't think of one.
Okay. Anybody else? Any thoughts, ideas?
I have one.
Yes, always.
Chesed and gevurah, right? Restriction with kindness.
Yes.
So like you can say to a girl, I know you want me to have a Ferrari. I don't have one, but I'm funny.
And therefore, what do you have?
Therefore, you're giving restriction with an alternative.
So what happens if she responds back to you and says, you're really just not funny?
Yeah, that's...
Dan's gotten that a lot anyway.
Well, then I'd pull out my Ferrari.
The one that you don't have, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think that far ahead. That's a good point.
Because she might be very restrictive, it's not.
She might be.
Yeah. Anyone got something
Else?
not funny to say?
What if like a guy asks
Yes.
you out to drinks and like you don't want it to be a date, but like you don't want to reject them, so you can just say, let's get food instead, and that's like more casual.
What's the that's a very good question.
No, because
Yeah.
it's having kindness because you still want to be with the person, but you're like restricting, like let's do that, maybe breakfast instead of like dinner.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it. And
Yeah.
I don't believe that we should have to commit to somebody just because it's a nice thing to do. I mean, you don't have to. A girl doesn't have to spend the rest of their life eating with people that they're not really that interested in.
It's free food though.
No, because then
No, that's not good.
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay, but even let's get that
There's
straight.
no such thing as a free meal.
That's true.
Exactly. You see that? So you always owe people. I don't agree with that. I think it's if you don't want, if you still want to hang out with a person, sure, go for like breakfast because you like their company and you don't want them to think further, so that's fine. It's a different vibe. But like if someone doesn't want to at all and someone asks them, they have to find a way to kindly reject it.
You have to reject it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
as
Not
nice
sure.
as
With them. It's better
What
to
would
be
you
up
say to
front
reject that?
than lead them on.
I agree. You don't want to have that person going out for a meal and then having these
some
hopes.
Yeah.
It's very unhealthy. That's exactly an example
should be
where
said.
gevura is needed. That's exactly an example for where gevura is needed.
And I find that not always you can offer the chesed, you know, like when you really want to say no, you're going to have to kindly say no. You don't have sometime like anything else to offer.
Most times, yeah, exactly. You should say, you should, at some point, you need the real gevura and just to say no. The guy's like at your neck all the time. But one thing I would add to that is that, you know, you could say, you don't have to directly answer the person. I mean, in that specific situation, you don't have to say, you know, you could just push him off and eventually you'll get the hint that you're not really interested in sitting for a meal. It's okay. I mean, I think it's
fine. I just find, I mean, I guess it depends the personality. I just don't like it. I think it's nicer to be nicer to people and cut it off right away if you really don't want to. And not like push them off tomorrow, next week, in 2 weeks, maybe when my schedule, you know, like that sounds so lame.
Okay, so Shira thinks that you should, and she has the power to, but I agree with Shira. Like we should. I mean, of course I would, but you know,
You don't have to.
no, that you should actually say no, and that would be easier. But me myself, I'm very I have that challenge. I have that challenge in me. So
Yep.
I know, I feel you, Molly. Like I know what you're going through. Like I have that challenge of confrontation. I don't know how to. I don't want anyone to be upset with me. Like I really have that challenge, and I know that feeling. So you know, if
It
it's
was a
really,
hypothetical situation.
okay, but not just you, right? Somebody else. So,
But either way, I'm
David and
thinking,
Sarah.
like
David
you
and
said,
Sarah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, either way, whatever she mentioned is actually it's a good situation that happens all the time, you know? So if you really are interested in their company, but not them to think anything further, yeah, breakfast or brunch, whatever it is, sounds cool. That sounds really nice. Because you still get the company and then hopefully nothing else. But then, yeah, if you want to make things clear.
That's actually a really good example of the right.
Yeah.
Right. Anyone else have any thoughts, ideas?
Will never actually happen.
A what?
Say it again, Donna.
In that situation, the meal's never going to happen. It doesn't matter. It's not going to happen. Sorry, Molly.
I'm just so hungry.
Okay, can someone offer her a meal like right now? She's hungry.
Molly, I would enjoy your company. When this is over, I'll take you.
Thank you. Oh, we'll have like a
When it's all
girl-
over, we'll all go out and have dinner.
Oh,
We'll
I
have
really love
brunch.
that.
That's what we'll have.
Wow. We should have a
Listen,
big party.
when we're gonna get back together, trust me, I'm gonna make a whole feast for you. So I'll invite
Oh,
you.
I'm so excited.
Guys, just remember, mimosas have 32% of your daily vitamin C. Quarantine tip. So you know.
I haven't eaten a good meal since Shira last fed me Shabbat.
Oh my God.
Not kidding.
You know, I'm sure you're eating. Ask your mom.
Yeah.
Okay, Zagat. Anyone else has any hypothetical like things that can happen? It's pretty fun. I like hearing those. But if you don't have, that's fine. I guess not. Let's see who's quiet here. I'm not gonna pick on anyone. It's not time. Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Anyone? Dan? Eitan? Where are you?
Why don't you give us like one of the types of, pairs, and then we'll think of one in that category.
So a type of which pair?
The combination, like Gevurah and Chesed, for example.
I mean, Gevurah and Chesed is something that we've been speaking about,
I I know. I'm saying, don't give me that one. Give me a different, give us something else to.
Letting someone down easy.
What do you mean?
That's how I take it.
So let me give you another example. Here we have the Sefirot again. Okay. So we didn't really go through all of these, and we should. But the next case is Netzach and Hod. Okay. So that is perseverance versus humility. So those are, once you have the harmony and once you have the beauty between Chesed and Gevurah, and you're doing really well in those aspects, so then you have beauty. Beauty means that now let's give an example of a kid. Okay, so the first two we explained is like the parent is very, very good connection with the child. They are very well educating their child. They give them good balance of restriction and good balance of kindness. And the child is now looking at the parent. He's happy. The parent is happy. There's a great relationship. So you've got the first three. What can happen now is that there's too much relaxing in that relationship. Okay, so now there's not much more going on. There's no, so the relationship is like that, but who said it's going to continue like that for long term? You know, things change. Situations change. The child grows as each year goes on. Can you still maintain that relationship with that child? Could you still remain in that balance? So that's the next situation, which is perseverance. Okay, so perseverance is when, let's say in dating as well, would be, okay, so you have a great first few dates and you feel this great amount of flow and the conversation is going really well and there's so much kindness in her and she sees so much kindness in you, but she also sees that you're able to have the right balance of strength and limitation, overcome certain situations. You know how to say no, and that's attractive as well. And you have this beautiful balance between the two of you, right? Who says that that's going to last for a long time? So now you don't need to date that way, but the real test is the test of perseverance. Will you now be able to maintain that type of relationship in the long term? So let's say if you once you know that balance, once you know that the first three is possible, you also know that with the right skills, the rest is possible. Okay? Because you've already proven that it's possible. People say to me a very common statement. They say to me, I find that dating is very tough because I never know if the person's just acting well for me or if they're really sincere. So that's a big fault in dating, which is what we call the default relationship personality, which is the person always says, I need to go through a mini marriage with this person before I actually commit to marriage. It's a very dangerous personality to have, which is in dating, which is called the default relationship style of dating. I need to be literally, at what point will you say that this person's ready for me to be married with? When you're living like you're married before you're married? I mean, how does that work? So you live with each other, you try and live like each other, you have to fight to know how you fight. I mean, what do you want to do you can't really try marriage unless you are married. So there is this concept which is in dating, which is I need to persevere in my dating for a long time before I actually see that I can commit to marriage with this person. Well, according to Judaism, perseverance is a factor that you can work on. Once I know that I have the right limitations and the right flow with this person and I feel like there's harmony, I also know that even if that person's acting and even if I'm acting, that at the end of the day, because really you will be acting no matter how long you are together because you're never married. And as long as you're not married, there's always that ability for one of you to walk away. So either side is always making a false commitment to the other side, right? David and Sarah are going out, and they're going out for 5 months already. David is still with Sarah. They are having problems, but they're staying together, right? Their relationship is in some ways not a relationship. It's always somewhat false, because David and Sarah always know that they are not committed fully to each other because they're only dating. They are not married. They would never tell you they're married. And they always know that they could just walk away. Every single party in that relationship knows that I could just be with someone else and no one's going to say I'm doing anything wrong. I can always walk away from this relationship because it's only a dating relationship. It's not a marriage. I can just call you up one day and say, I've just had enough. It's over. So that in itself causes a false reason for our relationship to continue, and it causes us to act our way through the relationship. The only way that can happen is if you're married. You can't test marriage before you actually marry. It's just no way. So what I'm trying to say is that netzach, perseverance, doesn't necessarily need to be shown in dating, but it's an attribute that needs to be worked on as well. When you date with someone, you want to know if that person can persevere in what they do. Have they been in and out of a job 10 times in the past 2 years? What have they been doing in the past 2 years? Did they start school, leave school, then they go to something else, go to somewhere else? Are they persevering in their own lifestyle in itself? Because if they are, then they'll persevere in this relationship that's going so well right now. So guy and girl, David and Sarah goes out 5 times and they feel an amazing flow in their relationship. They feel amazing in this relationship. It's just going so well. And they feel the harmony and the beauty and the harmony. I should add that word as well here, harmony. Okay, so they feel the harmony as well in that relationship. If she knows and he knows that she is the type of person that can persevere, that can endure, has been through many challenges and still stood strong with all of those challenges, then you know that in marriage they will persevere in this little mini relationship that we're going through, which is called the dating relationship. Okay, I know that if they are able to manage to put off such an amazing communication with me and you right now, I know that they can do this later as well. That is, there is always an element of faith when a person gets married. In everything we do, there's an element of faith. When you take on a job, there's an element of faith. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know how it's going to turn out with other people. There's always an element of faith in everything you do. You can never get married without faith. You can never take a job without faith. You can never move to another place without a certain amount of faith that things are going to be okay. Right? There's a lot of this in every action you do, every time, every day. There has to be an element of faith. Otherwise, you'll never do anything. There are those people that have constant anxiety and they have no faith in anything. So they will never be able to make that commitment like something big like marriage, right? There's many people that have that issue. So the way to do it is to also implement within you this concept of faith. But one thing's for sure, if I see that person has the quality of perseverance, so then I know that this is a person that can maintain this relationship that I'm having with them. So that's another example of Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, then Netzach, which is the next stage, which is being able to see that person can persevere in certain aspects of their life. If I am able to see that, that is a very important aspect of the person I'm going out with. If that person's in and out of every relationship, he's been in many. By the way, that's another point, right? It's somebody who dates, who's a great dater, right? Everyone swipes them on Swipe or whatever it's called, right? So they get loads of friends on Swipe. So people are pointing at each other. I think they're pointing at me on the screen, but never mind. So I mean, it's just one swipe. That's it. But that's really the idea. So I don't know where I was. I lost my point. But yeah, no. But
You're saying that it's, if people are in and out of relationships, then they don't have netzach, and you should look out for that.
Yeah, you should look out for that. So that's actually that's a point to understand also, because guys think, wow, like, look, I can go on many relationships. I can go on many dates. Look how cool I am. I get so many swipes. Well, that's actually not necessarily a good instinct. You don't want to be able to date many times. You want to be able to date right. Not with many girls. You want to date the right girl. You want to date the right guy. Not many guys. You want to date the right guy. So that's really what we should all be looking for in dating. And that's an important concept. So you might see a friend of yours who's like doing really well on Swipe or whatever these apps are, and you're like, I'm calling it. I know it's J Swipe, but I like calling it, right? So you might see someone's doing really well on these apps, but it's not an indication. It actually could be a weakness for that person. It's actually a very big challenge for that person, because it's very hard for them to commit. It's very hard for them to really look at somebody in the right way. It's not necessarily a good indication. So any other thoughts? Maybe we can continue this conversation next time, but it is late. So in case anybody wants to finish, we could finish. It's a good conversation. I can go on all night if you really want. But any thoughts on that? Should I share with you the next one, or should we stop there? Tired?
That was good, Rabbi. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Okay, so we'll leave it for the day, for the night. I've had some times where it's, I can't keep you guys for too long, but I love teaching. I love learning. I love talking. It sounds bad, but I do. Okay, so anyway, that's it. I hope you guys had fun, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi Jack.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
Pleasure, it's a
by the way,
pleasure.
everyone, we will see you on. Don't forget, we're doing virtual challah bake on Thursday. Make sure you have the ingredients so you can have some fun. Make some challah for Shabbat.
I am on a hunt for yeast. I'm going to try going to the grocery store to see if they have it tomorrow.
Listen, if you really need yeast, I have plenty, so just let me know. I can leave outside of my door in some kind of
Okay, if the grocery store tomorrow doesn't have it, I'm going to call you,
What?
Kara.
Okay.
What about ordering
everybody.
online? Can you not order online?
I don't know if it's gonna arrive on time. They can try.
Amazon is like, for not a lot, it's like $25. It's expensive.
Wow.
When really you could go to the grocery store and it's like
They're also
normally like 99 cents.
What about bakeries? Find out if a bakery would sell you the yeast.
No, they probably not. I mean, Glatma, the kosher markets have it.
Kosher market.
Yeah, the kosher markets have it. They even have delivery, but they have minimum delivery. But again, honestly, if you need just a little bit, you don't need that much. I have plenty.
Yeah.
So just message me.
The grocery stores should have it. Like,
Yep.
they should be restocked. It's just everyone's buying in bulk and baking. So buy your flour in bulk, guys. Flour and yeast to make your challahs.
Yep. And you can still join if you are not planning on making. But anyway, we will see you. Have a wonderful night.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Right.
Bye.
Good night, guys.